was funny, a little bit about me. I am a single 51-year-old dad, even though separated isn't technically single. When I was out in Vegas, I was looking for some of the sin that city is so famous for. Didn't find any, but there you go. So I am back out there, as George Costanza would say, and I sucked at dating in high school and afterwards. All my girlfriends came from like hookups, or they're already friends, and we're at a party together, and it's like, hey, let's make out. Okay, we're girlfriend, boyfriend. But even the woman who would eventually become my first wife, I met her through dumb luck. She was dumb, I thought I was lucky. But yes, Becky talking about work, I was having a discussion, and some of my old jobs came up. My first job after I retired from the Army, I am a veteran, but don't worry, I'm not one of those kind of veterans that throws it in your face every chance I get. I only tend to bring it up when it's relevant, and it just happened to come up. It was my first job. I was in the infantry for 23 years, and I still don't know. People always say thanks for your service, and I never know how to answer. Normally it's like anything else. People say thanks for something, I say, oh, no problem. But in 23 years, there was a hell of a lot of problems. So yeah, my first job was a cart guy at Sam's up in Watertown. And I like to aggravate my wife, who I still say wife because it's easier than saying lady who will eventually be second ex-wife. I say cart retrieval specialist because adding all that extra things to make it sound more important aggravates the hell out of her, which makes me happy. So yeah, I was a cart guy, and I was 42 at the time, and I worked with a high school kid. He's like, dude, how come you never stop? I'm like, someday you'll understand that when you stop, that's when the pain starts. And that's that. I also worked at Lowe's, and I was a cashier, which since I got out of the Army, I've been in customer service, and I dislike most people, which is really tough. But I had been training in Lowe's for about 2 weeks. I'd only been allowed to use the register of my own for about a week. A guy who was obviously a contractor came through, easily bought $1,000 to $2,000 worth of stuff, and apparently there was a big line at the contractor section, so he'd come through my line. And once I get through checking everything out, he's like, I want to use my Lowe's card, but I don't have it with me. My natural inclination is, okay, go get it. Like, if your significant other, say you're on your way home from work, and back then you call and say, hey, I'm on my way home from work, we need anything? Yeah, why don't you stop by and grab some milk or something? That's the kind of impulse buy. Like, you go to the store, you get a gallon of milk. You don't, as a contractor, go impulse buy and forget your card. But anyway, it's enough about my jobs. Being single and living separate from my wife and the house that I'm paying for. She lives with my daughter. I have an apartment, and there's anybody who's familiar with the band 3 Days Grace. One of their songs, they say something along the lines like, if you're not happy with the way your life is, take yourself to higher places. So I left my wife and got a second floor apartment. Yeah, and I love it. Are there any current wrestling fans here? Okay, I became a wrestling fan during the beginning of the Hulkamania days, which also anyone familiar with the movie Neverending Story, forget the big white dog, that should just put Hogan's face there. But current wrestlers, if you're familiar, maybe you've heard it, LA Knight, who always starts off with, let me talk to you.
Yeah.
Yep, isn't that catchy as hell? Can you imagine and now I just learned that I have one of these fancy watches where I can respond to text messages, and I just learned the other day one of the auto responses is, yeah. So whenever my wife texts me anything, but I try to get my daughter when I bring her home to say this kind of stuff. She messed it up, but I tried to get her to go in and say to her mom, let me talk to you. The one thing I succeeded at is, so when you go in the house, I always stay in my truck so I don't mess her up. Say, when you go in your house, you see your mom, say, hello, Newman. And she did it. And I'm like, did you say it? Did you say it? She's like, yeah. And he's like, what'd she say? She's like, I'm not Newman. Who's Newman? But that's it. I guess I love messing. I'm a sarcastic person by nature, and my daughter's got that. I asked her something, and she's like, duh. She's only 7. But it's great. When she was born, Game of Thrones, it was, I think season 6 was about to come out. So she's an infant. She's in her crib about 10 feet away from the TV. But you know how they say babies can hear in the womb? And there's some mothers who put the headphones on their stomach so the baby can hear and they play like classical music or something. So we're watching Game of Thrones and I'm trying to get my daughter's first word to be Hodor. Because she couldn't keep hearing it and I'd be like holding her and rocking her to sleep or burping her or whatever. And I'd just be whispering in her ear, Hodor, say Hodor. It didn't work, but not for lack of trying.